They say you're never more than 6 feet from a rat. Of course, the truth is a lot more complicated than that, and in practice it works out to be about 160 feet. But in Prague, you'd be forgiven for thinking otherwise, because, well, the city has a problem with big rats. Their common name is Nutria. They're also known as koipu, and they are a member of the rodent family. Although technically they are only fairly distantly related to the rats we know and love. As you can probably tell, they are semi-aquatic and spend the vast majority of their time in and around the water. This is actually part of the problem. They are, like many rodents, burrowers, and they undercut banks and destroy flood defences without any particular compunction. They are easily mistaken for beavers. In actual fact, my first Nutria I spotted from the Charles Bridge, proceeded to scream quite loudly and sprint across the bridge with all of my camera gear, only to discover on closer inspection that, well, the beaver I thought I'd seen had a round tail. In my defence, it does at least have very large and quite orange-yellow teeth, so I guess it kind of is forgivable. By the opinion of the public that rats are dirty animals, you can clearly see here that many individuals of the Prague population of Nutria actually clean themselves quite fastidiously, although they don't always pick the best perch to do so, and, well, they do occasionally take unexpected swims. Oh no! Nutria are exclusively vegetarian. They will eat virtually anything that comes off a plant, up to and including roots, stems and branches if the situation dictates, although they will generally go for leaves as they are more easy to digest. When they're not cleaning themselves, they eat, as far as I can tell, pretty much continuously. Daily, they will consume about 25% of their body weight, and they will feed all year round with no hibernation. These are extraordinarily large rodents. Mature, healthy Nutria can average 5.4 kilos, which is about 10 times larger than your average pet rat. As one might expect, their continuous consumption of vegetation is one source of their conflict with humans. They will, without any issues whatsoever, quite happily strip a farmer's field. As one might expect, however, this is not a significant concern in the heart of Prague. Much of central Prague's waterways were in actual fact defended by natural defences as opposed to purely artificial ones. Concrete flood defences still had their part certainly, but the vast majority of structural support actually came from plants. The Nutria viewed this as a buffet and aggressively defended their territories and their right to eat anything in them. But of course, being one of the largest rodents still does not make the largest thing on the waterway, and they don't get everything their own way. A swan, as many of us will have experienced in the past, will also aggressively defend anything the swan feels it has a right to. Which, in my experience, is about everything. To be charitable, I could at least say that perhaps the man who was feeding the Nutria here was feeding them appropriate foods, small vegetables, easily chopped up and readily consumed. However, of course, as soon as the vegetables ran out, the Nutria started looking for food from other people. They didn't attack anyone, certainly, but they were very pushy and very convinced that everyone nearby had some food that they were hiding from the Nutria. You can clearly see here several individuals begging from the same small child who was less than impressed by their attention. However, I want to make it abundantly clear, the Nutria were not aggressive in any way, shape or form. They were simply begging because ultimately, unintentionally perhaps, that's what humans have trained them to do.